Hi everybody! Today we will be reading Lunch Money Chapter 22, New Business. So let's begin. Chapter 22, New Business. At 9:20 on Thursday night, Greg sat next to his dad and mom near the back of the meeting room in the multiplication building. He sat up extra straight once in a while trying to see the small group of principals because Mr. Z said they would be there. And in the second or third row, down near the front, he was pretty sure that he had spotted the back of Mrs. Davenport's head. Rex squirmed in the folding chair, twisted his neck from side to side. He couldn't get comfortable. He had on a blue sport coat and a pair of itchy gray pants, a white shirt and his best black shoes, and a red necktie he had borrowed from his brother Ross. Dressing up was Mara's idea, but Greg had complained, but Mara insisted. What would you look like some kid who just came from the playground? Mara sat 3 chairs away. She was wearing a dark blue pants shirt and white shirt with a small ruffle at her neck, her new business outfit. She bought especially for the occasion. Then Mr. and Mrs. Straw, and at the end of the room, Mr. Z sat next to Greg. Greg decided that his math teacher was twitchy as he was. They'd been all sitting and waiting Wednesday for almost 2 hours. Greg had seen in the school readings on the local cable channel, but he had always flipped right past them and now he knew why. These people talked about healthcare for teachers, new science books, snow plowing, special education grants, state funding for tests, roof repairs, and on and on and on. Mr. Greg whispered to Mr. Z, "How much does this school pay the school committee?" Mr. Z held up his right hand with the tips of his thumb and forefinger pressed together. At first Greg didn't get it. Then he whispered, "0?" Mr. Z nodded. So there it was again. All the people in the world were carrying noble volunteers, except for Greg Kenton, who was selfish and greedy. The note cards Greg had been rolled, unrolled, bent, chewed, and twisted until the black ink had turned into gray and smudge. But it didn't matter because Greg had planned out exactly what he was going to say anyways. So he got to talk first because he won the coin toss, a heads, a victory over Mara, but he had wished he had called tails. As Greg and going over the opening statement for the 9th time, the chairperson of the school committee said, "For the next item under new business, we have a proposal about a comic book club at Asheville Intermediate School. Who is speaking on this?" Greg bounced to his feet and made to say, I am." The chairman pointed. "Please come to the table and talk into the microphone." Mara thought Greg looked very nice today in his blazer and gray slacks. His black eye was almost gone, and she was pretty sure that she had even tried to brush his hair. As Greg went to the center aisle, he got a good look at Miss Davenport sitting in the second row with the other principals. She wasn't smiling. Greg handed a copy of Return of the Hunter and a copy of The Lost Unicorn to each of the 5 committee members. He also gave them each a comic book flyer. Greg sat at the table in front of the microphone. A woman from the local cable channel turned on a video camera, and a small red light began blinking at him. Greg tried to smile into the camera, but his mouth was so dry that his lips just got stuck onto his front teeth. His hat was parted and made it feel like a skull running up under his shirt. The microphone was high, so Greg pulled one along up under him, cleared his throat, and leaned forward and rounded his first sentence in a loud, squeaky voice. "I'm Greg Kenton, and I go to Asheville Intermediate School." Greg gulped and forced himself to talk slower and lower. "I started making comic books over the summer." He held up the Korean comic. This was the first one. "And in September, I took some copies to school and sold them to my friends. 1 for a quarter. And everyone liked them, but I didn't know how to have permission from the school committee to sell things at school until Miss Davenport told me. So that's what I'm here for." holding up a copy of the Lost Yogurt. Greg said, Marsha lives across the street from me, and she made this comic, and I helped her. We both want to make them, and I call them Chunky Comics, and I think kids will really like them because they're fun to read. Kids can even collect them. Greg held up the comic book flyer and noticed his hand was shaking. Every month our teachers gives the teachers give kids an ad like this, mostly in language arts class or reading class. There are all kinds of books in here, all on the back. In the back there's an order for it, and kids choose what they want. They bring money to school and buy the books. Kids really like it, so we want to do the same thing, sell archive books to kids at school. That was the cue for Mara to stand up. Greg sniffed and pointed at her. Marsha will now explain the way our archive book club will work. Greg got up and headed toward the chair on the side of the room. As Mara walked up into the front. If Mara was nervous, she didn't show it. From the file folder cradled in her arms, she took a slim stack of stapled pages and handed one pack to each committee member. She walked to the page slightly on the front of her chair, spreading the papers all in front of her. She said, "Good evening," into the microphone. She nodded and smiled at the camera, and then each of the committee members holding up her copy of the package, she said, "Please look at the first page of information I hand you. This is a simple order from the Chunky Comic Club. Right now there are only 2 titles available, the ones that Greg handed to you. There will be a new form every month, unless there weren't any new titles. Just like a regular book club, teachers get to choose whether they want or not want to be part of the club. And just like a comic club, when kids order comics, teachers can order copies for free to have in their classrooms." Mom looked up at the 2 committee members. She said, "Please turn to page 2. Greg was impressed with Mara's performance so far. No goof-ups, no silliness, no drooling, just perfect. Except she looked like she was 23 years old. And was that makeup on her face, or is it what way the cheeks look when she got excited about something? Because he had noticed it before. Papers rustled, and Mara said, "Our comic book club also wants to do something different. If we make any money of us selling our cards at school, we want to donate part of the money to the new comic book fund of our school library, 10% of all the profits." Mara moved to page 2. "We know that there are other kids at school who are good at writing and drawing, so we want to have some after-school workshops and maybe help other kids be creative too. And that might mean there will be more comics and maybe other kinds of books or stories for Chunky Comics Club." Mara slowly turned the page, lifted up the packet, and made a dramatic pause. Gently waved the page back and forth. She said, "This last page is important. Regular book clubs are careful about picking the right books to sell to different aged kids. We're going to be careful too. Everyone knows that some comic book clubs are really fun. Chunky Comics won't be like that. Everything sold at our club is going to be approved in advance by teachers. Mrs. Antopoulos will be one of those teachers, and Mrs. Lindahl said she would help too. And now our advisor, Mr. Antopoulos, would like to say a few words." Mrs. Z made up to the front of the row, and Mara moved over to sit by Greg. Mrs. Z had no handouts. He sat down in the microphone and said, "I know it only meant it seemed that Greg and Mara make a strange request. At first I thought so too. As you all know, I teach math, and I tend to think that way, mathematically. And the more I've looked at what Greg and Mara are asking, everything adds up. It's completely logical. The book clubs have permission to sell books directly to the kids at school. And these clubs sell all kinds of books, including the ones about cartoon and comic book characters. So Greg and Mara wanted permission to do the same. They'd be creative and responsible, and they found a way to interesting way to use their skills developed in school in reading, writing, and art, history, science, and of course math. As teachers, we try to prepare kids for life after they leave school, and for time we go out and earn money and become distributing members of the economy and society. So I think that it's great that these kids are doing it at their own level now, in a possible and practical way, and I don't see anything conflict at all with their skills and the values of the school we're trying to teach." Mrs. Z took a deep breath and then said, "I know that some people don't think comic books are good for children. With your permission, I'd like to do a little math here. sitting in this room, I have counted 41 grown-ups at this meeting. So I am asking for a show of hands, please. How many of us used to read comic books once in a while when we were elementary or middle school? Greg looked over at the audience and quickly counted 29 hands. Among a small cluster of principals, only 2 did not raise their hands, and Mrs. Davenport was one of them. Mr. Z made a small note on the pile of paper. Then he said, "Hands down, please." That was 71% of the grown-ups in the room. Now, how many of us used to read cartoon books when we were children or young teens? Cartoons like Peanuts or Garfield or maybe Disney characters. All but 6 hands went up. Mr. Z made a note, a quick scribble, and that's 85% of us. Then Mr. Z said, "How many of us regularly looked at comic books or cartoons in the newspapers or magazines when we were between the ages of 8 and 12? 100% in the hands in the room went up, even Mrs. Davenport's. Mr. Z turned and smiled at the committee. "That's my proof. Apparently, comic books and cartoons do not have the power to keep children from growing up to be responsible citizens like us. The kind of people who run school and school districts decide how to spend millions of tax dollars every year, and I believe that kids in our school will not be harmed by this Chunky Comics Club. If anything, they will be inspired and eager to in a lot of constructive way. So I rest my case. As Amara, I'm happy to be one and the teachers that prove that everything in this club is appropriate." Mrs. Z nodded at the committee members, "Thank you," and then stood up and went back to her seat. The chairperson put a hand over her microphone and leaned back and then right to whisper other members of the committee, and then she said, "Thank you, Mr. Xanthopoulos, and thank you, Greg and Mara, for the interesting presentation. The committee would like to take some time before voting. It's getting late, so if there's no other discussion, we can move on under the last item of new business, the contract with food stores for the high school." Greg watched as the chairperson looked at her eyes over the room, and Greg saw her eyes stop, her face change, and suddenly she was called on someone because she wanted more discussion about the Chunky Comics Club, and without even looking, Greg knew who it was, and he was right. It was Mrs. Davenport. And that's the end of chapter 22. Make sure to enjoy and smash the subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more content. Bye bye. 2 more chapters until we finish with lunch money.